FCO, NTDO 212, complex.
DPS, go. Inco, go. PUS, go. Surgeon, go. Booster, go. Copy that. We have a go from you guys.
This is Talking Sound.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talking Sound podcast, coming to you straight up from Austin, Texas. I am Chris Jordan, your host, and as always, we have a great guest with us tonight, a long time friend. You gotta be at least 2/3 of my life, if not better than that. Thomas McNabb, fellow AV engineer, lighting technician, jack of all trades. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been a long time in the making. I know it was probably a couple years ago that I invited you to come be on the show. I think at the time you had just started a stint on American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you totally got to come on the show and talk about what it is to set up that monster rig. Because, you know, like if you've ever done any truss work or rigging, things like that, like you look at American Ninja Warrior and think about the fact that there are like 3 or 4 of those around the country and a couple of them travel, like that's just a logistic nightmare as far as rigging and things like that go. That's why I say jack of all trades, because you, much like me, are very much a AV Swiss Army knife. You know audio, you know some lighting, you know video, you especially know camera work and editing, coming from the McNabb family, a great family of video producers and editors, everything from Hell's Kitchen attributed to them, all kinds of fun stuff, even some new projects in the works. But tell our audience how it is that you actually found your way into audio and video, Thomas. Because this was not like necessarily your original chosen path, right?
Right. Well, no. Actually, I was military of all things. I was an operations specialist, which is the military intelligence side of the Coast Guard. So, which Coast Guard, for all you people, Coast Guard is a branch of the military. Not a lot of people know that.
That's right.
That we're kind of like everyone says over the last line of defense right after the Boy Scouts. But or another one I've heard is the Colonel or Uncle Sam's Canoe Club, which that one was pretty good. I heard that one.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
No, I was in the Coast Guard, and then when I left in 2007, I kind of was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I bounced around. I was working at a gym at the energy drink and juice bar. And then one of my good friends, Mo, ended up getting me a job at a gentleman's club, actually, and that's how I got into the audiovisual world. Was actually working as a DJ at Diamond Club, a little small hole in the wall, and worked my way up. Did about 5 years in gentlemen's clubs, and finally pulled the trigger. I had done my brother had gotten me 1 week of work on Kitchen Nightmare up in Austin at El Greco. That restaurant's now gone.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember because that was shortly after I moved to Austin, and you actually called me up. I came in, like, I remember seeing it on TV. I was like, look, there I am in time lapse.
But you did the redesign, right?
Yeah. I was part of the flip crew. I was part of the people that came in overnight and completely redid the place.
Yeah.
As far as scenic and everything
hilarious.
else. It was
awesome.
It was great. And it was a super fun experience. You know, I'd had numerous years of course, building sets and painting and things like that for theater and all kinds of stuff. So it was great. It's still a fond memory. And one of my first gigs, like that had to have been a couple weeks after I moved here.
Really?
It was one of my first gigs in Austin that you lined me up with.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad it worked out. And sounds like, I mean, with your show and everything, man, you're killing it out there.
Absolutely. It's, and that's just it, you know, that's one thing that I'd like to talk about, because you came from very humble beginnings. Like you said, you just you were tossed into the fire whenever you came into it. And to see you grow as a technician over the last few years, like I said in the intro, I've known you at least since I was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
I'm going on 43 this year. So it's one of those, like,
really?
I've known you. Yeah. That gives you a good idea of his age in life, folks. I don't belie people's ages, but I'll gladly give you a math question at some point. So kudos to anybody that can decipher Thomas McNabb's age from references that we make and things like that. But
that's probably references. Yeah.
To see you over the last 7, 8, actually, I guess at this point it'd be decade, because it was just a couple years before I left Houston.
11 years.
Yeah. So, what has that ride been like for you? Because it's taken you a lot of places, all the way from Houston, Texas to now L.A. It took you abroad on cruise ships. Give us a little synopsis of the last decade of the career of Thomas McNabb.
Well, I did that 1 week as a PA, and I was like the guy that just didn't care how low the job was. I was there to work, and they had me actually dishwash for the third day of taping, like the final day of taping. And it was just like I was there. The actual
dishwasher is over his hours for the week. Get in there and wash dishes.
Well, no, they promoted their dishwasher to line cook. And so they were like, we need someone to wash dishes. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's just that thing. That's fine. So I was like, wash dishes. And I'm like, yeah, like, so who's coming in to like wash dishes during the restaurant hours? They're like, you are. I was like, oh, okay. So Gordon Ramsay found it his mission to ride my ass the entire time and just mess with me. And he found it so entertaining. He was laughing his sides out the entire time. So you can see my butt on camera. That's the only thing you can see me doing. But
that's
I worked my tail off and went back to pubs, and I was like, I don't want to be, I think I was like early 30s at that point, and I was like, I don't want to be a gentleman's club DJ I've got a lot of gentleman's club DJ friends, obviously, because for the years I've worked and maintained friendships. But I didn't want to see myself, just being in gentleman's club. I didn't want to see myself doing it. So I called up my old production coordinator. And I went on Staff Me Up, which if any aspiring techs, anyone in lighting or sound or wants to get on through, that's a really, really good website to get into. And you post your resume and you just contact people. And fortunately, I looked at the credits for American Ninja Warrior. And I was like, hey, so I called, I dug out the old call sheets. And I called my old production coordinator thinking I didn't even think he was going to remember me or anything. And he called me back like 5 minutes later, and he's like, dude, I remember you about Austin. Yeah, can you, you're coming out to L.A., you're on Ninja Warrior. So that's how I got into it, and I pretty much traveled with the show for all those things, paid my way. My buddy Mo actually ended up coming with me. He had just lost his landman job. And because of the oil and gas crisis, and he needed a job, and so we literally got in his 4Runner, and we drove around the United States and followed the show, put the show up, did the tapings, struck the stage, next city, doing that, and I made friends with Jason, who was the LED tech, who was doing the video walls. And, I was in Vegas. After a while, they actually started putting us up in hotels and helping us out and all that kind of stuff. The production was awesome. The production team was great. And I just flat out asked for a job. And I said, hey, I want to move to California after here. I've got my CRV packed to the gills with all my stuff. After Ninja Warrior, I am driving down to L.A. I'd like a job. And he's like, yeah, dude. Call me. So I got to LA about a week and a half after I moved to LA. I got a job and just worked as an AV tech. And it was amazing how much core knowledge I already had just by, doing it through my travels and experiences and just liking playing with toys, playing with visual gear. that like I just took to it like a fish to water, and just worked my way up and got some really, really good shows, and then got in with the cruise ship industry, and applied even more knowledge and got to work with Facing the Sunshine Band and a bunch of different other people, and try not to name drop too much, but just been busting hump ever since, and that's really honestly what you got to do. You got to work your tail off and show dedication. And it's amazing how much work will come your way when people see you as a hard worker.
Well, and I quite honestly, I've said it more than once. I'd much rather on the job site have someone that's eager to learn and is a hard worker than someone who has 15 years of experience and an attitude.
Exactly.
And isn't willing to push some cases or roll some cables or do a little bit of, roll the sleeves up actual labor instead of just white glove operating a gig, and pointing and telling people where to put things. And that's just me as a crew lead. That's me as a business owner. That's the kind of people that I enjoy working with, because even though I'm a crew lead and business owner, I'm in the truck pushing stuff. I'll do all of it.
Oh yeah.
And you really do have to, it is, not just knowledge. It goes beyond the realm of knowledge. It goes into the fact of we're all ultimately in the customer service industry.
Exactly.
And making sure that our customers are as comfortable as possible with the technology at hand and that's being used. I guess through your years of experience, especially your vast experience, not just on television production, but as well as the live realm, going out, like you said, in the cruise ship industry, things like that. Which side do you find yourself gravitating more toward?
Actually, the live event stuff.
Why is that, you think?
Honestly, I think it's because you get the instant gratification at the end of, especially when you're not just doing it in and out, but when you're doing an actual show and you're the tech that's on the show, hearing the applause and the, when you set up an awesome, light show and, hearing the random ooh, or, I mean, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
and you can feel a crowd. You can feel when the energy, and really, I mean, you're as much as a part of as the performers. They just don't see you, and you can, what you do can grossly affect the production. If you haven't done things properly, then you can do it, and it'll affect the show. And you've got as much skin in the game as the performers, and I really, really like that aspect of it. I mean, I might be doing more TV stuff coming up too, but I'm going to be mainly, live event. If there's ever a time where I have the availability and the opportunity to do a live event, I'm going to jump at the chance.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, having been on not just broadcast television, but broadcast radio, I can honestly say that it's probably the closest feeling. And it's a lot of the reason why I started doing podcasts, was because I've, especially my Live Dudes and Beer podcast, because it's one of those, like, being live, there is no room for mistake. It's not like working film. It's not like working TV, as far as editing, where it's like, I can catch some B-roll. We can do that from another angle. Give that to me with a little more feeling. It's live. It's there. It's in your face.
It's one and done.
And that's just it. Technical hurdles may happen, and you have to overcome those, and the show has to keep going on.
Not may, they do. What are you talking about, may?
Yeah. Well, and I've told people all day long, because you know how it is, especially in the corporate industry. Many times you are octopus operating, where you are running sound and hitting graphics on screen and loading a PowerPoint all at the same time. And I tell people all the the time.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, hey, I can do this magic trick all day, every day. Just remember that the motions are the same. The only difference is one day the hat might break or the rabbit might break.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I can keep doing the trick, but something someday is not going to work.
Exactly, and that's when you got the guys who are there to scramble and fix the rabbit and glue the ear back on before the magician pulls the rabbit out of the hat. Yeah.
Exactly, like the assistant's there to make sure the prop is ready.
Yeah, and then once in a while you have to figure out how to turn a rabbit into a hat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to make a hat on the fly.
Yeah, exactly.
and that's just it. Like, there are only so many miracles that we as technicians can work, and it's hilarious that and I'm sure that you can do it, and I'm sure that if you can't do it now, you will be able to rapidly do it with your years of editing experience with video. But whenever I'm watching like broadcast news, I catch things all the time, like bumps in the graphics and things like that, where it's like, I saw that. I saw that.
Or they do a story and they show they end up rolling footage from the story that just happened, the one that's just about to happen. Yeah.
And I guess it was a few months ago, Amy had a friend who was interviewed on the local news in a spot, and we woke up early to watch it and everything. And I called up the control room. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I've got to tell the technician that he has a pixel out on that camera." Like, like he may not have seen it. You're in a studio. You expect to just turn things on and go and it's all good. He may not have seen the burned pixel in the camera, but every time they switch to that B shot of her that's tight, you can see a little white dot on her brown dress. It's not there. There's a burned pixel in the camera. So I gotta tell them. That's my good deed for the day. I would want somebody to tell me. I'm not giving him a hard time. What are some of the things that, especially right now, I'm in the midst of an AV install, a permanent install at a location. Okay. And I was talking with the people today. We were talking about a documentary we had all seen about cruise line construction. Explain some of the because he was talking about how he had actually bid on one of the first Disney cruise lines whenever his office was located in Florida. And he was like, the specs are crazy. Everything has to be triple braced and it's got to have it's got to have, you
never know when that ship's going to roll.
Hangs. Oh, exactly. When it's going to move, something like that. Typically, whenever you're hanging things from wires or have safeties on stuff, it's there in a static position. It's not meant to go do a whole lot of up and down or side to side movement like what happens on a ship. Yeah. So explain to us some of the unique issues that you have, especially doing stuff like keystoning projectors, that kind of thing, on a moving vessel. Because that's going to be a world of technical issues in and of itself.
Oh God, yeah. The projectors are super rigged in there. They're actually pretty much they'll be in a case. They'll be in on the radiance where I was. We had a projector actually directly in front of the balcony for the Aurora Theater. And you could open it up and actually work on the PJ if you had to change lamps or whatnot. And that's fused in there so well that once it's set, you don't have to worry about keystoning and anything like that. It's because you're going to have some movement from either if you're doing it with a projection screen or which is just literally a screen that rolls down, or even on a scrim with purple curtain, purple drop behind it. And of course you can change your aspect ratios to make sure that you have your frame to fill the screen depending on what it is. But it's actually those projectors are so are so wired and fused in there that you really don't. Once you set them, it's a set and forget. You may have to do a little bit of lens shifting, depending on, because maybe it's moved a little bit, but it takes like 2-3 minutes and your back brain's up.
Oh wow!
It's actually surprising how much engineering's involved. The main problem is actually the LED walls, because all their LED walls are outside, and saltwater and electronics are just the best of friends. If you
they get
out.
along great.
Oh yeah. So like you, and not to mention you got an LED wall, and say when I was on the Allure, you got like 2 LED walls on the backstage on the aqua stage. So you've not only got the salt water, then you've got all these divers and all this water splashing about, and so they got to be like super marine grade, environmentally designed, outdoor rigs. And I'd always drive broadcast guys crazy, because that was their responsibility, with the LED walls for the most part. And I would drive them nuts and be like, "Hey, you got that tile's out. That tile needs replacing," and just drive them nuts. And they're like, "You want to fix it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can, but I'm not allowed." So
I'm not allowed to. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
uniquely enough.
Yeah.
What was probably your favorite part about working on a cruise ship?
Honestly, the live shows. So I mean, it's just the hours were nuts out. They were like, for the pay and the hours, it was not comparable. Not
commensurate.
No, but it's competitive with this cruise ship industry, not competitive with the entertainment industry. So, but they take into account how much they're gonna charge for the cruise and all that, and so they have to. They're a company, but they want to turn a profit. So it was an experience point of view. But like I did a bunch of. I was on the Radiance out of us that was actually based in Australia for a few months, for about 6 months, and I was there for 5 of them. And we got to do a bunch of charters with companies. The name of the company I forget, but they did Cruising Country, which is a whole week of country and western, Australian country and western music. No Keith Urban, but they had a bunch of different groups, and then like we rolled immediately into Rock the Boat. And I got to work with a bunch of different bands, the Choir Boys, was it Cutting Crew, Wang Chung. Yeah, it was like all these different bands, so I got to work with those guys every night. And there was so much going on that actually I got in charge. I was put in charge of the lighting for an entire venue. Like it was just me and the guy that was hired, that was actually brought on by the charter company. And he and I would team up, and literally I was in my own venue running lights for like just nothing but 14-hour days, 2 weeks straight of just running lights. And it was like a little Martin light jockey. I mean, it wasn't anything like too fancy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was enough to do the job. And I had like, about 12 different bar lights and some movers. They're prison movers. So, with mirrors and what. It was, and I had to get real creative. And a lot of that, it was all on the fly lighting, because there just wasn't enough time to, get with each of the groups and organize
program something.
And program something. So it was all just on the fly, knowing the fixtures and just getting it going. And it was insanely awesome. I got to work with one of my favorite groups was these guys called the Stompin' Ivories, and they were a dueling piano group.
Oh, sweet.
And you never knew what they were going to do. Like they didn't give me a set list. They didn't give me anything. I literally had to, and that's where actually my DJing came into hand, because I have such a vast knowledge of popular music of every genre that I knew exactly what songs and where in the rhythm, because in lighting, a lot of people don't realize, especially when they're starting out in lighting, that you literally, especially if it's a rock show or a concert and there's like a heavy music format to it, you have to light to the audio because the song's going to go on, and you got to figure out what works. And that's actually, if I could give anyone any advice for lighting, you gotta feel the energy of the show and make a visual representation of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's it's odd because a lot of technicians are musicians, but a lot of them aren't. It definitely helps. It definitely helped me as an audio engineer, especially just being familiar with music to begin with, and just vastly familiar with the stuff that I listen to be able to pick those things out, and to be able to tie into that synergy, not just on stage, but with the audience also, and be able to pick out the things that they liked and enjoyed. And
for sure, man.
What aspect? Because, like I said, you've done some audio, you've done lighting, you've done video. What aspect of your trade here do you find yourself gravitating more toward as you grow as a technician?
I'd say video.
Why would you say that?
I would definitely say video. Honestly, I've set up so many different breakout rooms and messing with 10Q projectors, Panasonic, all the way up to the big boys, the 18K to 20K. And there's so many in video, there's so many toys and so many different ways that you can do. I mean, there's always one way to address a light. There's always one way to do, run sound. You're only going to run sound one way. You only do that. You can run video 1,000 ways from Sunday.
Yeah.
And you're always able to find a new way. I've found so many times that some guy when a customer has come up to me and said, "Hey, I want this." And you're like, how the hell am I going to figure it out? And you just got to go to your training. And you got to do it. And it's literally solving a mystery a lot of time. And the opportunities to solve mysteries in video are much more available than the opportunities in lighting or sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I love that.
I started in lighting and sets and stuff like that in theater in high school, back in the 90s, that kind of stuff, actually in junior high, but really got into it in high school. And then once I found sound, things went totally leftwise. I forgot about lighting entirely. And I still tell people to this day, like, sure, I can help you with lighting if it's like a Leprechaun board and some flash packs. Other than that, like, you want me addressing DMX, I am not, I got people I can call.
Yeah.
I got great LDs and they'll bring their own board and everything, but I don't.
You want grandma too? I know a guy.
It's some
need a Rhino 4
even audio. By the time I got here to Austin and started doing corporate AV 24/7, the fact that I was a video guy and had spent time in broadcast and with cameras and calling cameras and setting up switchers and building broadcast studios, it was like, oh my God, like, thank God we have a solid video guy. And I got so much video work that by the time I turned around, everything had gone fully digital with audio. And I had just kind of missed the learning curve.
If you blink,
audio.
It'll, like, there's something new every day. If you blink, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah, and it's granted, I'm up and current on everything video. I do that all the time. But it was just one of those, like, wow, it's amazing how fast one thing eclipses the other if you're not busy keeping on top of all of it. Some of those things are regretful, but at the same time, I've become very focused in my field and become in much more demand than what I once was. So good moves abound sometimes whenever you decide to focus things. I know you yourself. I saw very much my journey reflected in you, Thomas. Whenever I saw you coming up, and the fact that a lot of people told you were crazy with what you were doing.
Oh yeah.
Told you go out and get a real job. And you're like, no, I got a job.
Oh yeah.
It pays me.
Yeah.
I got a job.
Sometimes not well, but you got to take the bad ones with the good ones.
Yeah. And like, I remember when I moved to Maine was really when I realized and defined myself. I remember somebody asked me one night at the bar. I'd just gotten done getting another band on stage and went to go get a drink or step outside for a smoke, and someone was like, "Oh, what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, well, I'm an audio engineer, but I work at IDEX Labs during the day." I was like, whoa, like, I just defined myself. Like,
yeah.
That was the aha moment. You know, I'd been doing it for years, but I'd never really like defined myself as that.
Oh yeah.
When would you say was your moment where it just hit you that this is what you were supposed to be doing? And once it's funny because once you start following that path of what you're supposed to be doing, things just kind of lay out. You know.
I would say
pretty wild.
April of 2015, I realized that I had been on this course and that it wasn't going to stop, and I was just there for the ride. April of 2015.
Okay, and what was that moment exactly? What were you having a beer, shooting some pool, or?
No, it's when I built my first hod. I built my first lube.
Okay.
And because I'd run cable for ages. I knew how to run cable, and it just I was building a hod, and I was like, I was having fun taping together cable.
Yeah.
And you just like, that is freaking idiotic. That like you could have fun taping together cable. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking around, and it's just a bunch of buddies.
Yeah.
It never felt like work, but you were making a paycheck. You were earning a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. Loved every minute of every arduous hour.
Yeah. I was literally, beforehand, it was a job. It was a fun job. But like, I was wrapping that hod and wrapping that loom. And I'm like, I freaking love my career. And as soon as I said that, I'm like, okay, it's I've been doing this. And I've been doing my career for like 7 years at that point, 8 years. And never even like taken a step back. And I realized, I'm like, I've been doing this long already, but I love my career.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And yeah, I think that's probably the moment when I was like, yeah. And you know, there's a bunch of buddies putting together a show. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the moment that my attitude about things changed, because then it became the fact that, you know, I just get paid to play with people's expensive toys all day.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. You know, like even now, out on the install, like I'm up and down in a lift all day, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm installing people's projectors and acoustic systems and, you know, stuff like that. Just expensive toys all day long.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. You know, some of it may be some physical labor, but at the same time, and I've had production managers that I work with, even people that I work with regularly on the road now, tell me that I'm blowing smoke up their ass, that I love every minute of what I'm doing. And I'm like, do you ever see it, like, other than complaining about how people are working, do you ever, you know, or like the fact that my local crew is just like not up to snuff and doesn't know how to tape cables, you know, or something like that? Other than that, do you ever hear me complain about the job? Like, I love what I do. I wish I could do it more.
Yeah.
My family, they're such a nuisance with all of their love and needing of attention.
if I'm like 1 week off a gig and like I don't have another gig, I start getting crazy.
Yeah. Do you go through gig depression? Because that's what I call it, is gig depression. Where, I've just come off of like 2 weeks on the road, 18 hours a day, and I get home and I haven't gotten a phone call from local companies in like 4 days, and it's like, oh God, man, like nobody wants me to be on a show.
Yeah, right.
Dude, like you've had an extended weekend. Calm down, bro.
Yeah.
It's okay to have 4 days off.
It's the 3-day rule. Like after the third day, you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Dude, it's chasing the dragon. It really is. It's chasing the dragon.
It is. It's funny because even that feeling of wanting to work, wanting to be there, wanting to do something is why I took this install gig. And I had to tell the owner today, because we're waiting on parts and stuff, and we were out to lunch. I was like, listen, man, I know what it is to own a business. I know what it is to have overhead, everything else. Like, I'm driving an hour back and forth every day. Like, if you don't need me, like, we don't have to make 40 hours a week. It's cool with me. Like, if you only need me 20, that's all right. Like, I got plenty of work at home. I could be at home hanging out with my baby all day, all kinds of stuff. This is really, like, I hadn't gotten a call for local work in a little while because I've been on the road so much. And this came along, and it was a month steady, 5 days a week. So I was like, yeah, why not? Landed in my lap. Good stuff during the downtime, during down season for corporate work. And I don't have to hit the road. I can be here with my family,
Right.
And still guarantee stuff. Now, you were talking earlier about the hustle. About always being on the hustle, and that's something that I've always lauded you for, is the fact that you're always looking for opportunities and that you're not shy about asking about opportunities.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Yeah, like literally. And you kind of have to look at it as that girl down the road or that girl in class. Only way you know if she's going to go out with you is for you to ask.
Exactly.
Hey, what are you doing Saturday night? Hey, you ever in need of a sound guy? You ever in need of a lighting guy? Stuff like that. I have the general rule of thumb of not leaving the house without at least 5 business cards on me.
Yeah, that's a rule that I've started to follow. Gotta always have your cards on you.
Yeah,
you have to.
And it's essential, even in this digital day and age of cell phones, everything else, shared contact lists, all that kind of stuff. Nothing beats an analog card. And stuff like that. What would you say are some of the most important things you've learned over the last many years as far as dealing with clients and working on job sites, Thomas?
Well, working on job sites, there are 3-4 rules you got to do: is preparation, and preparation. Be aware, especially if you're like the one setting all the gear together. You got to be prepared. You gotta set yourself up for success. If you're not organized, then you can really make yourself a crap day. Because not everyone's going to know exactly where what's in every case. So you got to make sure you label your cases. You make sure you room everything. You try and stay as organized as possible. Then when you're in the inn, you have everything nice and organized so that okay, all your audio's over here, all your lighting's over here. Always bring a C-wrench. Always have your C-wrench on you. Crescent wrench for people who don't know that term. And never be shocked at, or always be prepared to hear the most outlandish, outrageous requests from a client and find a way to make them happy. Because that's at the end of the day, like you said, they're our customer. They're the ones that we're trying to make them happy. Yeah. And so you always got to be there, and don't be a dick.
Yeah.
That's actually rule number one. Don't be a dick.
That can't be understated or overstated enough, actually.
Yeah.
Just seriously.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I view it as I get paid to play with expensive toys all day that I don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
View it however you want. Just remember that you're getting paid well to do something that you love. Like, you aren't having to stand behind a 300-degree oven and cook all day. You aren't having to dig a ditch. Well, I don't know. You may have to dig a ditch to bury a cable.
You have to dig ditches and production. Don't get
I'm not
going to
say you won't have to dig a ditch here and there. Sometimes you may have to dig a ditch. You
always have to dig a ditch.
Yeah, it won't have to be like a water ditch, though. It can be like 6 inches deep.
Oh, yeah.
But, really, to me, attitude is everything on the job site.
Yeah.
Attitude is what leads to people not paying attention whenever people are angry, whenever people are upset, whenever people are hungry, for crying out loud. They don't pay attention. That's how accidents happen. That's how people get injured. People trying to work too hard, people trying to push too hard. Take your time, do it right. No reason anybody getting hurt over it.
Exactly. Don't be a dick, but also don't be a doormat either.
Yeah.
Know when to take your stand.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place.
True that. True. And I had some people recently on a show who were like, oh, well, you're in the position you can do that. And I was like, well, I wasn't always. But there came a day where I realized if I'm not the one who asks for this, I'm not the one who gets it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if I have to tell that first person, well, this is what everybody else gives me.
Yeah, there's a movie. You've seen the Layer Cake?
Yes.
With Daniel Craig, and where Michael Gambon's sitting there and he's talking to Daniel Craig, and he says, okay, like when you start out, you're going to eat shit. You're going to just eat. That's your diet, is nothing but shit. You're going to be dealing with it. And then you're going to get to the point where you're going to eat a little bit less. And then you're going to get to a point where you're going to eat a little less and you start handing it out. And then at some point, you're going to get to the point where you forgot even what it looks like. He's like, but always remember where you came. Welcome to the Layer Cake. And it's like, that's a pretty accurate way of doing it,
Yeah, that's a great description.
Time.
It does.
Yeah, it takes a long time for that to happen. And you got to be willing to put up with that and know when to say, okay, enough stuff.
Yeah. Well, and, it's also it's one of those, you have to decide what part of the industry you want to be in. Like, I know many people that push cases and they're happy just pushing cases. They don't want to be an operator. They don't want to get that deep in. They don't want to be face to face with the client, and they make just as much money as the next guy, sometimes more because they're able to do two things in a day. Whenever you're operating, you can't guarantee the rest of your day to somebody. You may have to be going through rehearsals or getting the show ready, what have you. Advancing
the show, all that.
Yeah, exactly. As we get ready to go out here, Thomas, thank you so much for your time and for taking the time to talk to our audience about what it is to come up literally from having a straight day job to beginning to get into a little bit of AV here and there in some seedy, interesting environments, and then moving on into great, fantastic things in AV, and doing amazing stuff. I can't wait to hear what happens with Fox News, things like that. It's great the way that your education has brought you around to this. Your worldly education in the realm of audio and visual. Where, if you could tell somebody one thing about this industry, what would it be? Just one final piece of advice.
Oh, that's a hard question because there's so much advice that it's hard to narrow it down to one thing. Never be too afraid to get on a show that you're a little nervous about. Like if you're afraid to take that leap. So sometimes you'd be surprised. Be honest with yourself on what you can and cannot do, but have confidence in yourself. And I catch myself doing it all the time, where it's like, oh, I'm nervous about doing this, and then I get into it. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like you got to be able to. Don't be afraid to take that leap, and take some guts, because at the end of the day, you got to look back or at the end of your life, you got to look back and address the what if. So try to narrow down as many, and sometimes it won't work. Sometimes you'll lose a gig. Sometimes you'll shine brighter than you thought you would. But you gotta be daring and be willing to take that rejection and that negative side as well as the positive. But don't ever be afraid to face that challenge. And where the chips fall, the chips are gonna fall. But you got to take the steps in order. It's your life, man. You gotta grab the bull by the horns. I guess is the best way to express.
Yeah.
You gotta be willing to take those things.
Yeah, and I couldn't state that better. It's the fact of you got to be willing to take the risk. You got to be willing to step out the front door to make the phone call. You got to be the one to move the slinky before it starts moving back and forth. It's not going to do it on its own. So great advice for everybody from somebody who has literally come from nothing to amazing things in the realm of AV. These are the stories that I love sharing with our audience. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Is there anywhere that people can go to check out your work, to check out any work you've done? Do you have anything online? Any shameless plugs?
Honestly, I'm pretty modest when it comes to that stuff. I'm not the greatest person at marketing myself online. Honestly, just if you see a show, like American Ninja Warrior, obviously, I'm in talks with coming up on, with working with Fox News, that's potentially in the works. So you'd have that, that if you turn on Fox News, there's a good chance you might see my work. Also, I might be getting to work on the Trolls Experience in Manhattan as an audiovisual technician. I'm in discussions right now for that. So who knows? You might come and see my, come to the interactive exhibit and see all my work firsthand.
Right? Exactly.
You never know.
Exactly.
I like being kind of in the back. That's my place. And I'm a terrible person when it comes to shameless plugs. I really am.
Well, you did a great job this evening, sharing your story, sharing your story of coming up. Hold the line for us real quick as we go out here. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. While you're online, checking everything out in the world of AV, make sure to go on by the Talking Sound Podcast, TalkingSoundPodcast.com. TalkingSoundShow.com is the mirror site. You can go there. There is actually a AV directory, a freelance AV directory that is being populated right now. That's interactive map of the United States, where you can go and find companies that actually hire people like us, freelance AV technicians, camera work, all kinds of stuff. You can also find some great articles from people like Rupert Neve, also Canon cameras, Yamaha, a lot of the newest, greatest stuff coming out, and tech articles about their stuff. Make sure to check out all the episodes. And while you're online, check us out on Breach TV, as well as our parent station, HCUniversalNetwork.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, everybody, keep reaching for 11. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.